So let me introduce you right away, and I am very pleased to welcome our two main guests of this afternoon. First, welcome Dr. Jan Rowlands, who is Associate Vice President International and Professor in the School of Environment, Resources and Sustainability at the University of Waterloo, Canada. Dr. Rowlands has administrative research and teaching interests in strategic international planning, energy management strategies, sustainability, and international education. His research work has been published in many international journals. Dr. Rowlands has previously worked at the United Nations Collaborating Center on Energy and Environment and at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Dr. Rowlands earned a PhD in International Relations from the London School of Economics and Political Science and a Bachelor of Applied Science from the University of Waterloo. So welcome and thank you, Dr. Rowlands, for being with us this afternoon. And right away, I'm going to introduce you as well with Dr. Jeff Casello, who is the Associate Vice President, Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs and Professor of Transportation, Planning and Engineering at the University of Waterloo, Canada. Professor Casello's interests lie in urban transportation system and their impacts on healthy and economically viable urban areas. Dr. Casello conducts research on the planning, design, and operation of systems that promote efficient, balanced transportation, enhance regional economic development, and supports social mobility. Dr. Casello as well has worked with many transit agencies in cities in the United States, Canada, and abroad, including Mexico City, Singapore, Washington, D.C., Houston, Philadelphia, and the regional municipality of Waterloo. Dr. Casello holds 3 degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. So welcome and thank you, Dr. Casello. I am very pleased to have both of you this afternoon, and please, right now, the presentation is yours. Welcome.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rodrigo, for that warm introduction, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be with all of you in Latin America, Canada, around the world today as well. And my colleague, Professor Casello, and I are delighted to be with you to give you an overview introduction to the University of Waterloo under the banner of Connecting Imagination with Impact. Dr. Casello and I will go back and forth a couple of times as we provide an overview of the University of Waterloo, its distinguishing characteristics, its engagement with the world, and its outstanding opportunities for graduate students. And we'll be delighted to come back at the end on any other issues you'd like to talk about in the question and answer period. Next slide, please. As you get an understanding of the University of Waterloo during this presentation, we hope you also get a sense of its values. Inclusivity is a priority, and so too are communities, current, past, and future. Thus, we take this opportunity to honor the land and the Indigenous heritage of the place on which Dr. Casello and I both are today. The University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. And our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building. Go to the next slide, please. On the center of the map in front of you is where the university is located. It's in Waterloo, a metropolitan area of approximately 600,000 people in the southern part of Ontario, Canada's most populous province. And the map shows you that we're in close proximity to a number of major urban centers in North America. And let me also share with you, we have great access to wonderful green spaces and many places of outstanding beauty as well. So for people who value both the urban and the rural, we feel that we have the best of both worlds here. Next slide, please. In light of the conditions right now, and I share Rodrigo's comments, I hope this finds you safe and well wherever you are. we are working from home, and we're missing our campus, to be frank, and we're looking forward to returning. And we've got in front of you a few scenes from our campus, and I'd point to in particular the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, which is a wonderful guided tour of our campus and gives you a sense of what it's like to be on the University of Waterloo. Next slide, please. Our people are the real value of the university, what makes the place so special. We're a university that's almost 65 years old and a community of about 42,000 people, 45,000 people when you add students, staff, and faculty together. You see there on the data in front of you, the number of degrees that were confirmed in 2020, undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, and PhD degrees. Go to the next slide, please. Our academic work takes place largely around and across 6 faculties, and the faculties are listed there. And I'd like to bring out a few of the distinguishing features of the faculties at the University of Waterloo. One is we have a faculty of health, knowing of the interests in Latin America, high priority. Our faculty of health is committed to improving the quality of life for individuals and communities through innovative education and research activities. It's a leader in the development of strategies that prevent disease and injury, promote and protect and promote healthy living, optimize physical ability, and improve well-being across the entire life course. Technology is also pervasive, and perhaps the names when you see in front of you, engineering, the whole spectrum of engineering programs we have at Waterloo. Mathematics, somewhat distinctive, a whole faculty devoted to mathematics, including applied, theoretical, computer science, and as well science. So technology imbues all of those faculties, but you'll find it in the other faculties as well. For example, our Faculty of Arts, where we bring together a community working in and across the humanities, social sciences, and creative arts. A lot of them are involved in the ways in which technology intersects with the digital world in which we live, and lots of interesting insights and contributions being made there. And then we have a Faculty of Environment as well, Canada's largest and most comprehensive Faculty of Environment. It's got a strong commitment to addressing the world's most pressing problems. And it cuts across the natural and social sciences, addressing the built environment, the natural environment, and training the next generation of sustainability leaders. The next slide just highlights our research centers, some of our research centers, and again, themes like health, technology, and environment come out. As you see words there like biotechnology, bioengineering, water, energy, climate change, artificial intelligence, and so on. We've got a lot to offer, and I'm delighted to pass it over to my colleague, Professor Casello, on the next slide to take it from here.
Thank you, Ian, so much for that. And thank you, Rodrigo and colleagues, for having me here. If you excuse my Spanish, me da mucho gusto estar aquí con ustedes hoy mismo. Yo tengo mucho orgullo en la Universidad de Waterloo y me da mucho gusto explicar los fuertes y las oportunidades aquí a la universidad. So thank you for this opportunity, and let me please just spend a few minutes with you now, giving you a high-level look at what I think are some of the strengths of our program. I'll turn it then back to Ian, and we can then talk more specifically about how you would go about accessing the university. So let me start with what I think is probably the most important element for our university, and that is our academic excellence. We were incredibly honored in 2018 when one of our wonderful colleagues, Dr. Donna Strickland, was awarded the Nobel Prize for her work in lasers and their application to health and other applications. So an absolutely outstanding award for us and for our university. Rankings aren't everything, but when we are presenting about the university, we like to let students and colleagues know about the strengths that we have. And so here is a subset of those that are programs that are ranked by the US News and World Report. And so you'll notice that the technical strengths of the university around electrical engineering, computer science, energy and fuels, and so on, this really is the strength of the university, although I do point out that we are just outside of the top 100 in social sciences and public health. So as you're thinking about the programs and about where your interest might lie, please know that the university is indeed a comprehensive university for its graduate programs. Waterloo is truly interdisciplinarity, and one of the things that we are perhaps most proud of is our collaborative graduate programs. So we have, as one example, a water program that allows us to bring together students from across the campus in all 6 faculties through 11 programs, anyone who has an interest in studying water. And as I said, we are having people study water from an engineering perspective, from an arts perspective, all across the faculties. Waterloo is also known for its innovation. We have an incredible intellectual property. So this is, if you develop something at the University of Waterloo that is commercializable or has value to society, you own that as a student or a colleague. And this is a special part of our DNA at the university. Not only do we allow that, but we also take steps to catalyze those activities for our students and for members of our community through our incubation systems. And particularly, we're proud of our entrepreneurial culture and heritage at the university. At Waterloo, we recognize that you come back for graduate studies or you study with us because you all have a passion for learning, but you also wish to be impactful in your communities. And one of the things that we really take a lot of pride in is our ability to translate our work at the campus into impactful outcomes for, again, for society, and grad impact is a way to do that. So we think about how we help you translate the things that you're thinking about as a graduate student into improvements into your community and into society. We also know that you come back to graduate school to study with us because you want to improve your own careers, your own profession. And we are increasingly adding programming that is intended to advance that agenda. So we do something that's called Grad Flicks, and Grad Flicks is one example of our professional development opportunities where you create a 1-minute video, and we have a competition each year amongst our students to produce the best video that explains their research to a lay audience. So I really want to make the impression here that Waterloo is a place that really is about research. It's about growing knowledge and learning, but it's also about your professional development and your well-being. Waterloo is known for its experiential learning opportunities. You may think of this as cooperative education or having a placement as a graduate student with outside agencies. We have, for example, a Masters of Public Service program where we have 100% co-op employment. So everyone in that program has been placed with an external partner where they earn money and gain professional experience while they are working, while they are students at the University of Waterloo. The university is really well integrated with our external industry and other partners. Last year, we had over $240 million in funding for our research. The lion's share of that is from external partners as well as from the Canadian government and other granting agencies. So these are all important aspects of what makes our institution special to be a graduate student. And I'll tell you more about how you can access graduate studies in just a couple of minutes. But back to Ian for some look at our international engagements.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And let me share with you a little bit about the nature of how internationalized we are at the University of Waterloo. And I think about it in 3 ways. First of all, here on the slide in front of you, inbound, as we call it, the fact that on our campus, there's a lot of international activity. International students make up about 1/4 of our student population, and they bring with them insights, perspective, experiences from around the world and enrich our campus community and our campus environment. Our faculty members are very international themselves. Almost 30% of them have an international citizenship. And then no matter what day it is, when we're on campus, there is a buzz about international activity. There will often be an international delegation visiting from around the world. There will be international research being spoken about. There'll be other kinds of international intercultural engagement going on. Next slide, please, Jeff. A second area is our outbound activity. Waterloo students, all of Waterloo members, use many opportunities to travel abroad. Increasingly, we're doing it virtually now as well. And I think going forward post-pandemic, we'll be combining the 2 approaches. So it's certainly the case that before lockdown and so on, thousands of our students would every year go abroad. Our undergraduates for cooperative education jobs and exchange experiences, among other things. Our graduate students would go to conferences, they do field research, they would have lab visits and such. Our staff have the opportunity to engage internationally with their peers, professional staff, services staff at other universities around the world, and as well our faculty have many connections. More than half of them did one of their degrees at an international university. And Jeff and myself are included within that number. So bringing forward much of that rich international experience. The next slide, please. And Waterloo has a lot of sustained connections with the world as well. So I'm talking in addition to the single experience of a travel or the single interaction that may occur, and those are important as well. But internationalization is about longer term relationships and relationship building as well. And Waterloo has been doing that in spades for years, nay, for decades. And sometimes it's formalized in the terms of international agreements, and we have them with top universities around the world. Sometimes it's in the terms of research activity that then gets produced in published articles. Sometimes it's in the form of applying for research grants to empower graduate students to connect in international experiences in some ways. And then we've got almost 20,000 alumni around the world in 150 countries who represent us, who give us insight and perspectives from around the world, and with whom we're delighted to keep in touch with as well. Next slide, please. A couple of words about the ways in which we dig into our research more specifically. And there's a lot of data on this slide here, and on your own time, you can dig into it as you wish. I guess I'd highlight three things in particular. One is there's outstanding talent on the campus of the University of Waterloo. Students and faculty members are winning awards, getting honors, and holding esteemed positions. It's also a really rich environment for creativity and application, the impact that Jeff was talking about, the creator-owned intellectual property policy rights he was talking about seems to draw people who are wanting to do new things together collaboratively and make the world a better place. And this impact is not only in terms of citations and journal publications, which certainly are important and are a means to get ideas out there and validated and built upon, but also in terms of the sustainable development goals and other ways we reach our communities. Next slide, please. And a couple of words about our connections with Latin America in particular. And just to let you know, we have rich connections with this part of the world. On our campus, we have our faculty members who come from that part of the world. We have students from that part of the world. We have a department, the Department of Spanish and Latin American Studies, who does investigations and teaching of that part of the world as well. And we have these sustained connections. We have alumni population in Latin America. We have a lot of research activity going on, not least of all as evidenced by the co-authored publications list in the bottom left-hand of your slide. But if you go to the next one, Jeff, also in terms of the research projects that are listed here. Again, on your own time, you can look at the priorities at the top, the research priorities the university has, as well as some details in the ways in which Caldo has catalyzed research engagement between Waterloo and Latin American universities. And once you look at those strategic research priorities, you'll see they resonate across the health, technology, and environment space. In health, I'll draw you to the fifth bullet point there. Health technologies is one of the priority areas. And Waterloo is really being creative and impactful in bringing together its technology space, its understanding of society, and its drive for creation to see the ways in which medtech and health tech can go forward. And the first, third, and fourth of those are all technology related. As you look at the words in those first, third, and fourth bullet points, you'll see areas where Waterloo is a world leader, as Jeff's earlier slides laid out as well. And then the second one, speaking to a lot of environment and sustainability priorities, areas in water, energy, and climate. I already mentioned our world-class research centers, ways in which we're having an impact. Next slide, please, Jeff. We are excited to build upon these international connections, these connections with Latin America to have impact, to co-create new insights and to make the world a better place. And this happens at a variety of levels. Individuals reach out and have their own international programs. And I would always encourage you, if when looking at the Waterloo website, you see someone doing something interesting, feel free to reach out to them and see if there's a synergy there. Our faculty, centers, institutes, and others, over 100 units at the university who have specialized knowledge in certain areas, which may find resonance with things that you're doing in your parts of the world as well. Whether you're a student, a researcher, an educator, a government official, civil society, business person, the list goes on. Next slide, please, Jeff. At the university level, we're very interested in connections. We're interested in partnerships. We're interested in the ways in which 1 plus 1 can equal more than 2, where we can bring perspectives together to cause real impact for, as the 4th bullet there says, for the global good. So if Jeff goes on to the next slide, you'll see that we have a couple of ways in which you can connect with the University of Waterloo before Jeff will give a detailed investigation of graduate studies. This is an organization at Waterloo called JEDI, or the Gateway for Enterprises to Discover Innovation. A one-stop shop, if you will, whereby businesses can reflect upon where they might want to engage with part of our research, teaching, or service community mandate at Waterloo. And on the next slide, Jeff, it's just a plug for my own shop, the Waterloo International. And we'd always be happy to engage with you and to help you see where there might be a connection that you can make for a positive impact. And with that, Jeff, I'll pass it back to you in the next slide.
Thank you again, Ian. So I'll pick up where Ian left off. And what I hope to do in this section of the presentation is help you really to navigate our graduate programs and give you the pathway from today, if you are interested in thinking more about the University of Waterloo, either as a student or if you wish to connect to us in a professional capacity, we of course would certainly welcome that opportunity. We have 180 graduate programs at the University of Waterloo, and as Ian pointed out to you, those are situated across our 6 faculties. What I've provided for you here is just some basic numbers about our enrollment at the graduate level. So we have about 6,100 graduate students. About 1/3 of those are enrolled in what we call course-based or professional master's programs. These are programs in which you don't write a thesis, but instead your graduate program contains predominantly coursework. It might have experiential elements, but this is the kind of degree one would take if they were trying to advance their career, but really wasn't interested in ultimately pursuing a research path. We also have research programs for master's students. So if you've done your undergraduate program and you're interested in graduate studies and want to become more expert in a field, but also gain some additional skills in writing, technical thinking, critical thinking, and so on, a research master's may be the program for you. And we have about 2,200 of our PhD students. And of course, our expectation of PhD students is that they will be creating new knowledge, really working with an experienced expert in their field, and will be working towards that goal of creating new knowledge for their discipline. And this is just the summary of those levels of study. How do you find the right program for you at the University of Waterloo? We have students we know that are interested, but it's sometimes difficult to find and to navigate your way through to finding someone with whom you wish to work. So these are some questions that I always ask students when they ask me about what's the best way to find a right fit. So what do you hope to achieve by being a graduate student? Do you want to do this research? Do you want to do a course-based program? What are you trying to achieve for yourself professionally? And what do you hope will be the outcomes from your work? What impacts do you hope you will have on society, on the economy, on community? I think so many of us go back to graduate studies because we are interested in making a change for ourselves, but also a change for our communities. So ask yourself that question. And where do you see yourself professionally? Because that will certainly influence the right kind of program for you as you think about graduate studies. And of course, it's difficult to go from one background to another in graduate studies, from your undergraduate to your graduate studies. It's not impossible, but it can be difficult. So it's often important that we tailor our skill sets and our interests to the program. And I want to draw your attention to this link on the right. This is a YouTube video that we created that really walks you through this process, the questions here, and helps you match with a supervisor at the University of Waterloo. So what do we hope you'll do? Well, this is the way we think about it. There's something you're interested in, the topic that you wish to study, and you have some skills and there's a certain approach. For me, I was interested in transportation, and my approach was to think about things largely quantitatively from an engineering perspective. That led me to find civil engineering as the program that I wanted to study. And from there, because I wanted to be involved in a research program, I needed to find a supervisor. So first I'll tell you how to find the programs at the University of Waterloo. This link here on the slide will take you to a listing of all of our programs, and the link will tell you that the degrees that we offer in each of these programs at the university. Maybe the more difficult part is finding a supervisor with whom you want to work, or if you are from industry and you're looking for an expert with whom you might partner on a project, research, consulting. The way in which we organize ourselves at the university is Ian and I are both associated with the Faculty of Environment, and Ian is in the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability. So if you were looking to work with Ian, you would navigate your way through to the School of Environment, Resources, and Sustainability, and there you would find Ian's profile. And from Ian's profile, you will find his contact information, you'll find his research interest, you may find some students with whom he's previously worked, you might find some of his publications. And so this is really a great way for you to get to know a little bit more about Ian and his work and how to reach out to him. And of course, it doesn't just apply to Ian, it applies to all of the faculty members at the University of Waterloo. This is the best way for you to find someone with whom you might want to work if you come to the university. The other way that you might find someone is that we, as faculty members, often have our own research web pages. So this is a clip that's actually from mine. I call my group the Waterloo Public Transportation Initiative. This is where the records of the research work that I'm doing, my students, the places we've published, and so on, all of that is presented there on the Waterloo Public Transportation Initiative. And I think one thing that you'll find really important on some of these pages is to find out what our students, those who have graduated with us, what they're doing now. So it's really important on those pages that we list what our students are doing. So it gives prospective students, or even again, private sector partners, public sector partners, a sense of the kind of work that we're doing and the kind of interest that we have. So again, if you go to my webpage there, you'll see what the alumni from my program are doing and the places that they're working now. So how do you apply? Well, the first thing is to know what the requirements are. And at Waterloo, unfortunately, we have a diverse set of requirements depending on the program that you want to apply to. What's really common is, of course, that we need to know your previous academics. We need to know your averages. We'll need to know your language proficiency scores. You'll have to have letters of reference. These are really very common things. Some programs have more specific things that they require. For example, we have some programs who require a writing sample to be able to assess your ability to communicate. In terms of key dates, most of our admissions are for our fall term. And at Waterloo, we run 3 terms. We have a fall term that begins in September to December. We have a winter term that goes from January to April. And in a couple of weeks, we'll start what we call the spring term from May until the end of July. So there's 3 terms at the University of Waterloo, but most of our new graduate students begin with us in the fall term. Now, to get admitted for the fall term, the deadline to apply for most programs is February 1st. Although if you go back to the program page that I've linked to before, you'll see the deadlines for each of those programs. And this link at the top of the slide is really the best place for you to begin. And you can go there and find out all the information you need on how to apply to the University of Waterloo. In terms of what you could expect for support funding your studies, we are really transparent about what it will cost you to be a student at the University of Waterloo. We publish the tuition charges, we publish the fees charges, we publish some guidance on how much it costs to live if we are able to invite you to Canada in a post-pandemic world, and that includes your housing and your living expenses. So there's very good guidance on our webpage that will explain to you the sort of the expenses that it will take for you to be a student at the University of Waterloo. We also help you with funding sources, so we can get external funding, and some of those we've already talked about here today, CONACYT and others. You may get funding from your supervisor or from your program. Of course, like at many universities, we have opportunities for you to be a teaching assistant or a research assistant with our departments or our programs. And the last bullet's a really important one. We know that when you come internationally to us at the University of Waterloo, you're making a commitment to us that you want to learn and study with us. And we want to make an equal commitment to you. And oftentimes international students are a little bit nervous about or apprehensive about traveling internationally because of financial constraints. But I want you to know that if you come to us and you have an unforeseen financial problem when you arrive in Canada, the university has what we call emergency support programs. So I want to give you some confidence that if you do come to Waterloo and you invest in us, we're going to invest right back in you. When you come, we're really interested in supporting you. The first thing is, if English language is problematic for you, we have a program that will help you get your English language up to a level there where you have great confidence that you'll be successful. We have an immigration support network through our Student Success Office. And as you begin to do your research and do some writing, we have an office amongst many others that helps to support with your writing and communication. So I'm trying to give you a sense here of the extensive supports that the university has in place. As I mentioned before, the university is keen to help you with your own professional development. So we have many student support on professional development, including our Center for Career Action, which will help you with things like resume building, finding external partners, getting a co-op position, and so on. We also have a professional development program that we call Grad Venture. So if you wish to practice interviewing, if you wish to be well prepared for the Canadian workforce, we'll help you with that as well. I'll just end with two messages about the university's philosophy about students. At Waterloo, the students are at the center of all we do. And I know this sounds like sort of marketing speak, but it's the truth. I've been in many roles in a decade or more as an administrator at the university, and I'm so proud of the way in which our university cares for and supports our students across undergrads, grads, postdocs, faculty, staff, even research partners. I really feel like the University of Waterloo is a place where academic excellence takes place. We are completely committed to rigor, but we are doing that with a balance of student wellness and success. And as Ian and I have mentioned a number of times, inclusivity is incredibly important to us. We are a place where your cultures and your heritages and your unique backgrounds are not just welcome, but they're celebrated, and they become learning opportunities for all of us. We want our graduate students to leave the University of Waterloo truly as global citizens. And I'll just end by saying that we really believe that the university goals are your goals, and we'll work with you from a graduate perspective to ensure that we catalyze and facilitate and give you every opportunity to be successful and achieve the goals that you've come to be with us for. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and we're happy to take questions and provide some answers as we're able to. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Casello and Dr. Rollins, for your very interesting presentation. I think that it was a lot of very good information for people interested in connecting with you from different universities in Latin America, or at the same time, people or students, candidates interested in following their graduate studies at University of Waterloo. So thank you so much again for this wonderful presentation. Right now, and something that I forgot to mention at the beginning, please feel free to ask any question that you may have through the section question and answers. I will do my best to take all your questions that are arriving through this chat, and I will, of course, ask to Dr. Casello, Dr. Rollins, depending of the kind of questions. I know that some of the questions have been already answered, so I will go right away to ask a couple of questions that I see here. So the first one is, what is the best time to connect with potential supervisor? I guess that is something for Jeff.
Yeah, thank you for that. When you are thinking about applying to the University of Waterloo, it's a very good idea to reach out to a potential supervisor. As I said, the normal application time is late in the calendar year, so December, January. So normally we receive requests from students in the fall, so August, September, October. Those are the times that we will normally hear from students. And I will just give maybe a bit more advice. When you write to a potential supervisor, one way to get their attention is to show that you've read their papers or that you've looked at their website. When we get a message that doesn't seem to have done any background work, it's less likely that the potential supervisor will write you back. But if you write to us and let us know that you've read our papers, if you've seen our web pages, if you're interested in a certain course we taught, then it really demonstrates your commitment, and you're much more likely to get a response from a supervisor. Of course, you can feel free to reach out at any time, but the normal time where we would hear from students is in those months that I mentioned, August, September, October.
Thank you so much. I will follow with the question from Uriel Fernandez. For a PhD program in chemical engineering, when is the deadline in order to apply in a year?
Maybe that's a question for Jeanette, if she's with us. I should just say that our colleague Jeanette Nugent is behind the scenes. Jeanette leads our admissions team, and she is, I don't know how she knows all that she knows, but she knows all. So Jeanette, maybe you can help us with that question.
For sure, for sure. So for chemical engineering PhD, they do offer admission in the 3 terms. So February 1st was for admission for September, June 1st for admission in the following January, or October 1st for admission in May. So you can always apply now if you get all of your documentation in, if the department, you have a supervisor set up. Sometimes we can also bring the term back that you can start earlier. So the sooner you apply, the better.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Here's another one. If I want a course-based master, can I have funding from my supervisor?
So normally that's not the case. We normally are providing financial support for those who are engaging in research activities at the university. So for our course-based students, there typically isn't financial support. There may be opportunities to work on campus. There may be some TA opportunities, but to be honest, not very many. And normally the funding for students at Waterloo is for our research-based students.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Here's another one. What is the scholarship program that the university has, if any?
So I'll take that one as well, Ian.
Fine.
We have a program at the university for our PhD candidates that's called the International Doctoral Student Award. This is a little bit of a complicated answer, so I'll give it quickly, but I'm happy to follow up. In Canada, we have 2 tuition charges for our graduate students. One is for international students and one is for domestic students. The reason why we have 2 tuition charges is because our government pays us some support to educate our domestic student, but doesn't provide any support for us to educate international students. So our tuitions tend to be higher for international students to offset this difference in our government support. But for our PhD students, we essentially and effectively charge equal tuition for our PhD students, for our international and our domestic students. And so all of our PhD students get the International Doctoral Student Award that brings your tuition down to about $8,000 per year for a PhD program. At the master's level, we have a similar program for what we call the International Master's Award of Excellence. Not all students get, all international students do that, but we do provide that support for some of our master's students who are exceptional international candidates. But there is a whole host of support opportunities for our graduate students, and that can also include support from your supervisors. So I think the one thing that I can promise anyone who's listening today is that we'll be very transparent with how much support we will provide and let you make a really good decision about whether or not it's in your best interest to come to Waterloo. That's what we can certainly promise you.
Thank you, Jeff. Here's another one. How does University of Waterloo assess scholarship or financial support for PhD programs? And so there is any age limit for applying to?
No, we welcome students of all ages. And in fact, we have for our Canadian citizens, if you are a senior citizen, you come back to us for free. So, but for our PhDs, we have, in addition to the International Doctoral Student Award that I've just mentioned, we have a minimum PhD funding level. So all students at the University of Waterloo receive funding, PhD students, every year will receive a minimum amount of funding that is about 24,000 Canadian dollars. Now from that, you have to pay tuition, of course, and living expenses, but that's the minimum funding. Some students receive more, no student receives less, but some students do receive more than that. So that's the guarantee that we can give you if you come to study with us at the university.
Thank you. Here's another one. I would like to read papers from potential supervisors as a way to learn more about their work before I send them emails. However, sometimes those papers are not available online. How can I get access to the information? It is appropriate to contact each professor?
I'll gladly jump in, Jeff, if you want. And just, I don't think there's a uniform policy across all faculty members at the University of Waterloo, but I think faculty members are certainly happy to see prospective students engaged in their work. And we certainly understand that there may be paywalls and other barriers that individuals aren't able to access all of the scientific literature. Sometimes with the copyright agreements that the researchers will have with the particular journals, they're in a position to give a preprint or some mechanism, some form of the publication to individuals, as long as it's understood it would be used for private means only, for their own education. So my advice would be, again, taking Jeff's advice about put some thought into who you're writing to, so you can tailor your query specifically and let the recipient know that you understand what the research is all about. But I would certainly say, do feel free to, within reason, a reasonable number and so on, for those areas you're interested in, ask if a preprint would be available and say it would only be for your own private use.
Thank you, Jan. I'm going to take this question as well. It is mandatory to contact a supervisor before applying for a research master's program?
No, it's not mandatory to contact the professors. It will help, I think. Maybe I can just take 1 minute to explain the process of what happens when you apply. So when you apply, we know which program you are applying to, and you tell us, of course, what your research interests are. We then take your application from our office and we send it along to that department or that program, where individual faculty members that you may have identified or that the program will know share your interest. They'll read your application and they'll make a decision about your admission, provided you meet the minimum requirements, which many students do. And then we will receive back a recommendation from that potential supervisor. So having contacted the supervisor beforehand will draw more attention to your application when it arrives at the university. So if you've had that conversation, it is useful, but it's not mandatory. In our Faculty of Science, they do only accept students with whom they have had previous conversations, or they may have an interview with you before they admit you into the university. So there's no formal requirement, but it is in your best interest, I think.
Thank you. Here's another one. I have a bachelor degree in natural resources engineering from Panama. I have already my ICAS assessment report course by course. My question is, can I transfer my credits from that degree to enroll in an environmental undergraduate program?
Jeff, want to draw on your undergrad experience? I've got a thought, but you may have more current information.
I don't actually know the answer to the question, Ian. I have to be honest. So Ian.
Let me just say 2 quick points, Rodrigo, around the question. So if Amber we're talking about having partially done the degree and thinking about transferring those credits to the University of Waterloo in an undergraduate program, as Jeff and I both well know, there are formal mechanisms for that, and that is a possibility. And up to 2 years of study towards a 4-year degree can be counted. Where I'm not as sure, as Amber mentions, the degree has already been obtained. So I'm not sure the standing that would be granted for that. It's certainly a question that could be put to our registrar's office, which manages undergrad admission questions of that type.
Rodrigo, I would welcome if our colleague who asked that question wished to send me an email, I would certainly direct it to the right person at Waterloo to make sure that they get a response.
Perfect, thank you. So here's another one. So how much time does it take to review an application and to have an answer?
Very good question. This is one that we are working on internally with our colleagues. We know that the students who apply to us have options and have places where they would like to study, and we want to be as responsive as we possibly can to our applicants. So, you know, the normal process is that we'll receive your application, it will stay with us in our office for just a few days, and then it moves out to the program. As Ian and I are sometimes guilty, we don't immediately respond to our colleagues' requests to review those applications that come to us. So there can be a longish lag. We hope to get answers in 2 or 3 weeks from the time that we receive your application. Sometimes it can extend longer than that. Certainly, if you haven't heard from us in 3, 4, 5 weeks, then you certainly should follow up with us on the emails that you'll see online for us. There's gradapp at Waterloo that is the central place to connect with us. So I think, you know, a reasonable expectation is a month or 6 weeks from the time that you submit your application to the time that you should get a decision from the university.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you have internship programs in water resource engineering?
So I'll answer that one, if that's okay, Ian. We have, in our civil engineering program, we have quite a concentration in water, and there's not necessarily a formal internship program, but what I can say for sure is that many of our researchers are engaged with external partners. And so it's not unusual at all for a graduate student to be working with an external partner or to be getting research ideas from that external partner. So this is something I think that makes really Waterloo unique, is our ability to interact with external partners in really meaningful ways. So not a formal co-op program or a work placement, but certainly opportunities to interact with external partners. And I'll just, again, put in a plug for our collaborative water program, where we have researchers in water working with public and private sectors across the whole institution.
Thank you so much. Who can I contact about a PhD scholarship? Please.
Thanks, Rodrigo. So, Clau, I think it's difficult to say because it depends on the program and the tuition and so on. So I think if you have an academic interest, you know, if you know that you want to study in our Faculty of Arts or in our Faculty of Health, why don't you reach out to me, and I will direct your request to the right people in the faculty who can help you get a sense of what the costs and the supports will be from the institution. It's hard for me to say blanketly who to reach out to, because some of these things are program by program specific, but reach out to me and I'll certainly make the connection for you.
Thank you. So I think that we are arriving to the time of this webinar. So I would like to ask you, Jeff and Ian, if you have some final thoughts, some final ideas that you would like to share with the people attending this afternoon.
Maybe I'll go first, Ian, and
Sure.
then you can wrap up.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think that I hope that you're as excited about the University of Waterloo and our expertise and our strengths as we are. I think probably you'll hear from Caldo and you'll hear from many of our peer institutions with whom we have wonderful relationships, and we all think very highly of one another. And we really encourage you to come to Canada to think about your graduate work. It's a fantastic place to live and work and study. It's a place that is remarkably comfortable and open-minded and collaborative and inclusive. I'll just say for the University of Waterloo, I came from the US. I've been in Canada for 17 years with my wife, and this is now our home for sure. And the university is a very special place for us. I've made relationships with my students professionally, personally, academically, that have been exceptionally rewarding for me, and I hope for them as well. Uno de mis estudiantes favoritos, mejores, es ahora está trabajando en el Banco Mundial ahí en Mexico City. Y es un trabajo pues muy importante por él, pero para mí es increíble que yo puedo llamar a él y hablar de su trabajo allá en México. So come to us, podemos trabajar en junto y podemos aprender en junto. It'll be a wonderful experience, I promise. So think some more about the University of Waterloo. And you can reach me at jcasello, JCASELLO @uwaterloo.ca. Thanks, Rodrigo.
Thank you, Jeff.
And let me just say a couple of final words as well. Like Jeff, I've found that Waterloo's been transformative. I've been here with my family for 23 years. I studied in Ontario originally, but then went abroad for 11 years. And coming back to home in Canada, I'm not sure where I would end up. Waterloo was an opportunity, and my goodness, a day doesn't go by that I'm not thankful that I ended up in Waterloo, for I find it a wonderful community at the university and also a wonderful community in Waterloo region and Ontario and Canada as well. Jeff has kindly given you his email contacts, and Jeff, Jeanette, and their team on the grad studies, postdoctoral affairs, you're in wonderful hands there. Let me give you my email contacts, Ian Rowlands, iRowlands@uwaterloo.ca. And I'd be delighted if there's queries outside the domain of grad studies, postdoctoral affairs to try to respond to those. I'm very excited about our internationalization and our intercultural elements going forward. The pandemic has been continues to be trying, at times tragic and taxing, that's for sure. But it certainly encouraged us all to think about what we value and how we want to have impact as well. And we at Waterloo are revisiting, rethinking our ways in which we can internationalize and engage across borders of all kinds. And so excited to think that many of you on this webinar might engage with us on that in that journey through studies at the graduate level or at undergraduate level, through engagement of research, through other kinds of engagement as well. So thank you for joining us today. And Rodrigo, thank you on behalf of the university for the opportunity as well. And we look forward to keeping in touch with Caldo and with all colleagues and partners on this call as well. Thanks, Rodrigo.
Thank you so much again. To all of you, honestly, I think that it was an amazing session. I think that is something that, of course, I am pretty sure based on the amount of questions and interest, so could be very interesting to repeat this kind of activities in the near future. So thank you again to all of you, Dr. Casello, Dr. Rowlands, Janet, thank you so much for answering so many questions at the same time and responding and helping me on that. So thank you, and thank you to all of you that were taking the time to attend this event, this session this afternoon. I know that it's sometimes difficult to take the time to attend an event, and especially now that we have been participating, all of us, in so many different virtual activities. We are following classes online. We are doing a lot of presentations. So I think that sometimes it's not easy to choose, pick and choose where I am going to go. And thank you to all of you for being here this afternoon. And as Jeff and Jan were mentioning, we will be more than glad to continue the conversations through Caldo, through the University of Ottawa, with every one of you. So have a wonderful and safe afternoon, and we wish you all the best for all of you. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye.